Welcome back to Talkville. That's right. And by the way, the music playing, that's my band Sunspin. That's the instrumental version of the of my band that comes out. The album comes out in September. Go to sunspin.com. Just throwing it out there. Anyway, welcome to Talkville.
We weren't able to get Enrique Iglesias. Damn it.
Damn it, you and your Enrique Iglesias.
Henry Churches.
Welcome to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast, where each week we go back. We go way back. We watch every episode. Still, last episode I said it. I get anxiety thinking I have to watch every episode of this show now. We watch every episode of the show that changed our lives and maybe changed your lives. We discuss it with each other, with fans like you, with our patrons. You can go to patreon.com/Talkville if you want to support the podcast in more ways than one. We really appreciate it. It helps the podcast so much. If you didn't get a chance to call in and leave your questions for this episode, make sure you get some in our future episodes. Our hotline is 213-538-2883. Social media, follow us, please. Talkville Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Talkville Pod on the Twitter. And please subscribe. You can watch the episodes on YouTube, but it really means a lot and helps the show a lot if you write a review. We do look at comments. We don't always respond back, but we read comments, and sometimes we discuss them on the show. And welcome, Ryan Tejas.
Howdy.
Welcome, Thomas Welling.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. Wow. Let's just get into it. Without further ado, let's get into season 1, episode 8, Jitters.
First of all, I just want to say that this is one of the many episodes at the beginning of the series that we shot very much out of order. And poor Tony Todd, I think, lived in Vancouver for 3 months when he was supposed to be there for 5 days.
Our lovable guest star, Tony Todd, who you know from Candymam, has been in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
He had to keep coming up because we were shooting out of order. And by the way, some people that are going to tell us some things. We got special guests today coming on, and those guests are the creators. Al, Gough, Miles Millar. They will be here. They're going to be here for a short period of time, and they're going to. We'll see what they remember about Jitters and just about the show in general. It'd be just nice to have them on. Wow, this was a. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, Ryan or Tom, but I'll tell you. This episode moves. This episode, I really enjoyed this. Next to the pilot episode, this is the second best episode thus far. Would anybody disagree?
Well, I'm not me. It's in your wheelhouse though. It's got the horror, it's got the scary, it's creepy, it's
emotional.
Yeah, it's fingers crawling up your back kind of feel.
Yeah, I agree. The episode was called Jitters. It aired December 11th, 2001. The director was Michael Watkins. I remember Michael Watkins. Writers Al Gough.
Michael was brought in to fix a lot of the stuff that wasn't happening in the earlier episodes, and then he got this episode on his own. But he was the doctor who came in and fixed a lot of the other stuff.
He did. I remember that. The writers were Al Gough. It doesn't say Miles Millar. Was Al just the sole writer of Jitters? I don't know. Usually they're a team. It's like Simon and Schuster here or whatever. The guest star was Tony Todd. He played Earl. And the synopsis.
IMDb also says it has Sherry Bennett and Jeff Gottsfeld credited as writers.
As writers as well. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for filling that.
Miles was in Thailand. He took a break.
Maybe he took a break. We'll find out where Miles was. Former Luther Corp employee Earl Jenkins, who also worked at the Kent farm, has an unknown disease that causes violent seizures. He arrives at the Kent farm during a party Clark throws while his parents are out of town and claims that the disease was developed following an explosion at his former workplace, Level 3 of Luther's.
Which is why he goes to high school parties.
Exactly. Level 3 of Luther's Smallville plant, which was experimenting with meteor rock-laced fertilizer. Trouble is, there's no Level 3. Determined to prove his case, Earl breaks into the plant, taking hostages. Lex arrives with the police and trades himself for the hostages. And while Clark stays behind to try to help Lex and find out more about Level 3, which Lex claims to know nothing about, but Lionel apparently knows about the mysterious secret underground level when he arrives, determined to keep the secret experiment under wraps at the expense of anyone, even his own son. Action-packed. By the way, remember, we're going to get to your questions in the episode later. 213-538-2883. That's a hotline. Make your messages short, to the point. But here we go. A little brief play-by-play of what happens in case you forgot. We just recently watched this. So the Kents are planning an anniversary trip out of town to Metropolis, leaving Clark alone on the farm where he goes on to host a rager. By the way, which person told everybody about this rager? Do you think it was Pete or Chloe? Aren't they supposed to be like outcasts or kind of nerds like you? Why would they just announce it to the world here?
I feel like Pete. He'd be like, I'm not going to say it, but
maybe he's just trying to get popular.
I don't know what you're doing on Saturday, but I'm going to party at Clark's Barn.
Clark's Barn. In Metropolis, former Luther Corp employee Will shows signs of uncontrollable seizures and seeks out Lionel Luthor to answer those side effects developed after working in Smallville. I really thought that scene was touching with his baby. Even in the beginning, when he goes to touch his child, you could tell that he's got these problems, and he's, you figured it out, like, oh, he can't even hold this little baby because he's got these tremors, these jitters. And it was kind of like, holy crap. It was like, you saw the what is it that the child lays in? What the hell is that called?
Crib?
Crib. Thank you. It's a crib, and it's just shaking violently. And I love the effect on that. It worked really well. And it gets you going for this episode. It gets you going.
Yeah, so the first thing that jumped out at me when I heard that we were doing Jitters was Tony Todd. And then also that the crew was so respectful of his performance and his physicality that he had to do. They really made sure that they were ready to capture the performance because they didn't want him to continue to go through this physical transformation over and over. That was something honestly, as a new actor, I saw the crew doing, and I was like, oh, this is cool. They're supporting the performance in a way that is awesome. So
yeah. That is awesome. We can't talk highly enough about the crew for Smallville. I believe that they're a big reason to get me through a lot of these years. They were so professional and so sweet and so fun to be around. We knew them by name. We loved them. We adored them. A lot
of the same people year after year in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And those guys have gone on and men and women have gone on to work on new shows like The Flash and Arrow and all these other shows.
Yeah.
Back to the play-by-play. Back at the party, we learn that Smallville high students are taking a tour of Luthor Corp plant. Whitney shows jealousy over Lana, and Earl hides out in the Kent barn seeking refuge at the place he used to work, because he used to work with Mr. Kent, with Jonathan Kent. Earl's jitters intensify, hurt Clark's hand because of the kryptonite, cause him to be hospitalized. In the hospital, Earl is sought out by police, wanted for murder. He tries to explain his seizures are due to a Luthor Corp Smallville plant explosion on level 3 months earlier, but there are no records of this explosion. Clark decides to investigate more about this mysterious and unknown level 3 during his field trip, which so happens to be led by Chloe's father. At the trip, Earl, who escaped the hospital and police, takes the group hostage and demands to see level 3. Lionel shows up to do damage control. Whitney tries to take down Earl, asking for Clark's assistance, but Clark has to decline because of the meteor rock effects when he gets near Whitney. When Clark gets near Earl. Yeah. Sorry. Whitney fails, and Lex decides to go in and offer himself to release the kids. The methane gas fills the power plant. Lionel makes his decision to close the fire doors, trapping his son inside, and Clark goes back in for the rescue. Clark finds the hidden elevator to level 3. Lex is shocked and knowing it existed, and Earl is furious because they've wiped the testing area clean. After a seizure episode, Earl and Lex are dangling from a bridge, and Clark is forced to fight through the pain of making direct contact with Earl to save the day. Lex is suspicious of his strengths. So many things going on in this episode.
So one of my favorite things to watch are these conspiracy things where somebody's onto something And, there's a movie years ago that I watched, and it's about Wall Street, and these guys are like killing it. They're killing it. And this guy figures out that they're cheating, and he calls somebody, and the next day they're going to go in at 3 a.m. before anybody's going to be there. And they go to the floor of the building, and the building is wiped out. And I'm a sucker for that. Like every time I'm a sucker. I'm like, oh, how'd they get it out so fast? How'd they clear out? I mean, obviously in the movie, they just shot it on another floor. Like I get it. But
right.
Story, but like practically, but like story wise, I'm a sucker for conspiracies that like there's a level 3. I know it, the X-Files of it all.
Yeah,
it's an X-Files sort of thing.
Yeah. Another thing I like is Lex really was in the blind, was in the dark. He didn't know what was happening. At first you're thinking, oh, maybe Lex knows, but Lex at this point is still trying to do good.
Lex doesn't know about level 3.
No. Look, we're going to get to Alan Miles in a minute because they've got to jump on. But I felt like this episode, like you said, had it all. And you were right. I liked the horror aspect of it. I love the effects of the handshaking and the violent tremors, the jitters, as they call them. I love the actor Tony Todd. I always have, from Candymam. Say it 3 times.
He was extremely intimidating in the best sense. He's a large person. He has very large hands.
His eyes tear up a lot. Did you notice that?
I don't
His
recall
eyes
that.
always tear up in a lot of things he does. He gets
but
emotional.
When I texted you that when you were like, we're doing Jitters this week, I was like, Candymam. I remember him in Candymam. So when we did Smallville and he was there, I was terrified of him. Like I never even asked him about Candymam. I wouldn't even say Tony Todd.
You didn't ask him about it?
No, I was scared. It was just like, what am I going to say? And by the way, you have to understand when guest stars come in, they only have a limited amount of time to be focused. Like I'm not going to mess with them, especially when they're like on it, you don't want to mess up their zone. But he was I just remember just feeling like he was actually going through the experience.
He was just incredibly intense. You know what I like again is this father-son dynamic. We really get to see Lionel Luthor as a guest star on the show, and he was a integral part of this show, to say the least. And having that dynamic, the father-son dynamic, and does he even care about his son? Does he even, and them always one-upping each other. I like that we see signs that's the kind of the beginning. We had a fencing scene from a few episodes ago, and now we have moments at the plant, and I like that we bring Chloe's father in there to it's like, oh my God, this is Chloe's father, and everybody looked worried. Did you notice how everybody's? I remember 2 things. One is Pete played it really scared, like Mr. Kent. Do you remember that? He played it really emotional, and I guess for some reason it didn't work, so they just cut around it. They cut away from it because he's like, Mr. Kent, Clark's is inside, and he was really playing it emotional. He went to that level, but I guess it didn't work for the episode, so they cut around it. Do you remember that?
Because he didn't really have a pre-beat to get to that point. That's what I'm guessing.
And I also remember being on Wires with Tony Todd up on that what do you call it?
Oh, the bridge.
The bridge or whatever in level 3.
Yeah.
And I remember once we were up there and it was uncomfortable. We had these wires hooked up to us and we're dangling for a long time, and he goes, "Come on! What are we doing now? What are we doing now?" Like for a second, he was uncomfortable. He just kind of said, "Hey, let's go." And they picked it up. It was like, hey, we gotta get going. He was so intense, and he stayed in character. And I loved working with him. I became friends with him. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's going to come on my other podcast. And Tony's coming on, and I'll definitely talk about this. But what an intensity he brought, and you can tell he was just he had this relationship with Jonathan Kent, and they were buddies, and he couldn't hurt a flea. He was really good to Clark. He was teaching him how to play guitar, all these little things that added up. And it just made you feel more for this guy, and that he was going through a hard time, and you knew Lionel Luthor and Luthor Corp were up to no good.
Well, he was a gentle giant, and he's very intimidating as a person. But I can tell you that there's nothing comfortable about wire work. Not for the person in the harness, not for the camera operator, not for the cinematographer, not for anybody. It's a very uncomfortable scenario. And the idea is you don't put the actors up until everything else is ready. At least that's what they tell the actors. So then when you're up there and you're waiting and you're losing the blood that goes to your lower part of your body, you're like, what's going on?
Because you've done a lot of wire work.
Yes. Yeah. I got wise about it. It took a couple of years. I had some good help from my stunt guys that they would help out making sure things were ready and whatnot.
Talkville is sponsored by Indeed. What's better than finding quality candidates? Finding them right now. For a powerful hiring partner, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed.
Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews.
Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job.
Indeed makes it easy to start hiring. It takes 10 minutes or less for most SMB employers to post the job according to Indeed Data US.
Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post. With Instant Match, you can start hiring fast.
With Indeed, you can select for the skills that matter to you most. Customize your job post with a selection of over 100 Indeed assessment tests and find the candidates with the right skills fast.
Indeed has a jaw-dropping pool of talent. In fact, 3 out of 4 of U.S. online job seekers search for jobs on Indeed each month, according to ComScore. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to sponsor your job post at Indeed.com/talk. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/talk. Indeed.com/talk. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Al Gough, Miles Millar, welcome. The creators of Smallville. We are in the middle of the episode called Jitters. There's so many things. Al, thank you for always throwing me little comments like, oh, these are the behind the scenes. We shot that out of order. Hell was breaking loose on Smallville in season 1.
Giving you notes on your podcast.
Oh, yeah. No, I want them. I want Al's Corner or Miles' Corner, whatever it is. If you have any things that you remember. First of all, welcome. Thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
By the way, before we get into Jitters, I don't know when's the last time you saw Jitters?
We saw it about an hour ago.
Oh, yeah. You did? You watched it?
No, we watched it. We totally watched it.
It is insane. It's insane.
It's huge. So many stories about that one.
Well, here's the thing. I can't even put my head around. How old were you guys when Smallville started?
We were 33.
33
what?
years old.
I thought you guys were old when we started.
We were
you guys were so wise.
Was there, how much stress, honestly, was there put on you? How much stress did you have?
It was incredible in terms of it was a show that had to work for everybody. It had to work for the WB. It had to work for Warner Brothers. It had to work for DC Comics. And, so that there was definitely a lot of pressure. And the first 2 seasons, we wrote every episode. Our names aren't on every episode, but we wrote every episode because, you're trying to certainly figure out the show and what works and what doesn't. So I think in season 1, we probably broke 44 stories to get 22 episodes, because you're just trying to, at least, if not more, We
used to write all day and then go to the office at like 8 p.m. and the writers were there all day and stay there till midnight. It was incredible. And then fly up to Vancouver and deal with the craziness up there. It was absolutely nuts.
And you were married. You were married and kids at the time, right?
Yeah, my wife was pregnant. My first child was born the same day as Tom's birthday, first season.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was crazy.
April 26th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Were you going insane? Like, how did you deal with the nerves of being these young guys creating such a huge show for a network, and it had to be a success, all the pressures in the world? Did you just not think? You just said, we're just going to do the work and see what happens?
I mean, to be honest, we didn't have time to think. We were just doing the work. We were just in the middle of it. So, and certainly before it aired, it was like
Tom too, and Mike. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was nuts, and it was, I call it the long hot summer of second guessing before the show premiered. So, you would get a lot of, notes and thoughts and ideas. And look, the show just rewatching Jitters again, I'm like, holy shit, this episode is massive. Like Miles and I are always delude ourselves into thinking that we write producible things, and then we're always shocked when they're not. But then
watching that one again, it literally is completely unproducible. I think it was like 35 days of production. It's like all the things that happen in the episode, the fireworks, like the stuff with the gangplank at the end. I mean, that's like.
Well, I remember I was telling Rosie just before you guys got on that I think Tony Todd set the record for days at the Sutton place. Like he came up for 5 days and he stayed for like 3 months or something.
Yes. Yeah. He made so much money.
Yeah.
He made more money on that than he did on Candymam, he told us.
Well, also, you said this, Al, a lot of people were fired in the first season. Is that true?
Yeah. Well,
it was, look. Well,
Miles,
we should get one of them on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I remember flying up to Vancouver when this was in production, and I arrived the day they were shooting the scene in the control room. So everyone was like the hostage situation.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly hot in that set, and the director had left and had not come back, and he'd got on a plane and left.
What?
So they didn't know what to say to the cast. Like, what should we say? What should we tell people? Who's going to direct the rest of the episode? Because he's just left.
Why did he leave?
He had a personal matter.
He literally had a breakdown and left. This was
we can't name who it was. Like 8 people directed that episode.
Yeah, the name on the episode is the guy who left, and then basically, Greg Beeman did the majority of it. Greg was great because he came up and did Hothead, obviously, and we'd known him from our show prior to Smallville, and he called us up and said, "Hey, it seems like it's a little crazy up here. If you need a producer director," I mean, we were literally going like, "Who could go up there and do this?" And Greg called.
Greg's like, "I know how to do this."
Yeah.
And it was just like, I'd love to do this. I love the show. I think it's great. I think the cast is fantastic. I think you've got a real hit here. We're like, you're hired. You know what I mean?
Did you guys ever feel like your jobs were at stake?
Yes, always. I mean, all these people got fired. It was a great story. All these people got fired. And then the head of physical production at Warner Brothers, we were so over budget. He took us to lunch at the Smokehouse. And he sat down and said, "Guys, the pendulum eventually swings to you. You need to get your shit together and make the show on budget, or you're next." So it's like,
what?
It was a great lunch for us, actually. And we love the guy. He's since passed away, but he was like, it was a really good warning for us and a really like humbling moment.
Oh, so it was like an on the side sort of heads up. It wasn't like that's nice.
No. It was literally like, "Boys, let's go to lunch." And then it was, and what's crazy about Jitters is that, we shut down and shot the rest of that episode. We shot down whatever episode we were shooting. We shut down and spent a week finishing Jitters so that it could make air when it aired.
Wow.
So, and that's, because it was so expensive.
It was meant to be episode like 4 or something, or 3 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It was supposed to be like episode 3 or 4. And I think whatever it is now, episode 7 or something.
Episode 8.
8.
Yeah.
Episode 8. So it was one of those things like we didn't have another episode to put. We were like, we got to now finish Jitters. Like, it's just, Tony Todd's been up there for years.
It was that episode and the second episode, the Spider Boy episode. Those episodes, like, oh my God.
Bug Boy.
Yeah. Bug Boy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you got through those years, because I remember how stressful it is for us, but like, we're just actors. We're just like, all right, we'll figure it out. But you have all these things coming at you. You got to control the writer's room. You got to control what's going on set. You got to make sure they're delivering good episodes. The performances are good. It's just like endless. It's like you're watching dailies. You're watching, I mean,
You're having babies.
having babies.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's weird. And then just the churn of production designers and costume designers and all that stuff was just like, and then just finding the show and making it look like we want it to look. I mean, look at the costumes in episode. The purple shirt was just like, what is that? I mean, wow.
Right.
Just like,
well, this was a great episode.
That, and it's Whitney's black leather jacket, which is a total demon thing. It's so bad. It's so embarrassing, but it is what it is, right?
But the thing is, it's like, what's funny about these early episodes, watching them, is you kind of can see how the show starts to find its feet. There's always which always drives me crazy, the freak of the week thing.
I know, and I say it too,
but this is the thing you have to remember. Every show had a freak of the week. Supernatural had demon of the week. Buffy had vampire of the week. But because back in the old days, an avid viewer of a television show watched 1 in 4 episodes. So you're not doing what we're doing now, which is we do 8 episodes of a series. They're chapters of a book. 22 episodes, you're doing short stories in the world. And then you have some episodes that are mythology that can tie the whole season together. So it's kind of fascinating now to go back and watch. And what's crazy about this episode is it had a lot of, some of it I remember. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, I totally forgot about the party at the beginning. Totally.
Oh, I did too.
Then
good.
I totally forgot. So what's crazy is I remember it was the WB was always, what are the teenage things Clark can do what are the teenage things he gets involved with that aren't so he's goody two shoes? And what fun can he have with his superpowers?
It's wish fulfillment elements.
Yeah. So it's like, how do we get those in? And then my favorite though is like Lex shows up with fireworks. Really?
That's been an ongoing thing. We're going, what is Lex doing at this party? It's a high school party. Hey, you just want to throw some fireworks. I talked to the cops. Everything's okay. Just lurking around.
I love that. I love that Lex somehow in the 6 hours that Clark was pulling off this party, got fireworks and paid off the cops and set them up in a field next to the kids.
Someone needed to be the adults at the party.
Exactly.
Yeah, somebody knew.
Oh my God. Anyway,
it was amazing.
But that was but you see that when it was like, like Miles and I, we both watched at the same time. We called afterwards, like there's fireworks. There's the whole ending, which was massive. There was,
the teaser in the rain.
Oh yeah.
That bit.
The teaser in the rain.
I was just talking about when Lex and Tony's character Earl are up on the bridge and we're on wires and he was like, it was uncomfortable and he found like, come on. And he kind of yelled out and he was so intense and he was great in this episode.
He's great.
This episode it's so dynamic because you really see the Lex Lionel relationship blossoming and you see, maybe Whitney and Lana are kind of maybe falling apart. Maybe there's hope for Clark and the loving relationship between Martha and Jonathan, and you see all these like little stories going on, but also the story of a man who's really wants to hold his baby and be normal again, and is dying, and no one's believing him. And you see what the Luthers are up to, and it kind of goes. It's a lot of subtext, a lot of things going on.
Yeah. No, it was actually I didn't know what was going on, so it was like very intriguing to watch it again. It certainly is a cliffhanger in terms of like it's compelling. The story itself is compelling, and the actual character beats you've mentioned are all really good. I thought Lana particularly was good in terms of her like dilemma.
Yeah,
I also think incorporating what he did. It's an adult story woven in that we really haven't seen thus far. We've talked about the adults and they've been apart, but this is an adult dilemma of wanting to hold your children and whatnot. Yeah.
Did everybody audition for Smallville? Were there any exceptions where you just made offers for guest stars? Was Tony Todd an offer, or did he audition?
I mean, he was Candymam.
Yeah, he was Candymam. I think he auditioned actually.
I think he might have auditioned, but we were like, "Holy shit, it's Candymam!" and we cast him. So.
It was like that.
I remember him from The Rock. Do you guys remember The Rock?
Yeah,
the Michael Bay movie.
Yep. Didn't he get killed by a rocket or
He
something?
did get killed by a rocket in The Rock. That's what I remember him from.
Yes.
Yep.
He was mean.
No, he's so, you're just like, wow, he's a really compelling guest star, and then
I guess in terms of the guest stars, like, Margot Kidder and co, who like the big guest stars didn't audition. Most people auditioned though. I can't think of other guest stars who didn't. Like Michael McKean didn't, obviously. So I don't know.
Were you forced to hire mostly Canadian actors for guest stars?
No, in season one, it was actually in season one, we had like, I think we could bring up 3 guest stars from California or something. So, but by the way, remember Glover was in that as well, because Glover was a guest star in season one.
So that was the one thing I wanted to bring up. Glover became such a big part of the series. And I know he was hired as a guest star. Can you speak a little bit about how you found him, how you then understood that we need this guy more? Because he's so integral.
Yeah, no, he was obviously there's the Lionel Luthor. We thought it was just going to be like a guest star in the pilot, and I remember Nutter tried to get William Macy to play it. You know what I mean? Like he reached out to William Macy to do it, and then he didn't, and then so we got Glover. And Maz and I were familiar with John from some of his other TV work. I don't think I realized what a huge Tony Award-winning.
We knew him from Gremlins 2, the new batch,
right?
Yeah, from Scrooged.
Yeah. So it's just, but then he came in and he was just so good. And then again, it's the thing you sort of figure out. The show tells you what it is in a weird way, and obviously it was puberty with superpowers, but it was also a show about extreme parenting. So in order to have the Kent story resonate, you really needed the Luthor story. And, John, to his credit, he would fly in on Sunday on Sunday. Usually he had a Sunday matinee if he was doing a show in New York. He'd fly Sunday, work Monday because theaters are dark in New York on Monday. And he'd fly back Monday night or Tuesday morning so he could get to the theater Tuesday night. Like, I mean, but
also, like, it's the chemistry between Michael and John. I mean, that's what really made it. Those scenes were just like magic.
Yeah.
And it gave Lex a real purpose, and just that whole dynamic was just, you two just had the characters and the acting sparks that really like ignited the screen. So
it wasn't planned.
I agree. When we rewatch it,
right?
Those are when Michael and John are on. It's so electric. You can't look away from it. Like, yeah, you're right.
He was a joy. It was a joy.
They're very good.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that's on John's part, to be honest.
Most of it, but that's all right.
But you didn't plan, like you're saying, you didn't plan for John to be anything more than a pilot episode where it's my father. You weren't, and then you saw the dynamic. Is that what happened? And you're like, wait a minute, we got something.
Well, you also want to see, when you start breaking the stories, you want to make sure that Lex is an integral part of the show. What is his stories per every week? What are you going to do with that? And as Al said, it's like the contrast makes the Kent story resonate more fully. But I think the Kent relationship is great too. I mean, John and Annette have incredible chemistry, and it's like he is that like all-American guy who's just the opposite of Lionel. So it's just the perfect combination and contrast.
I actually, being on set with them with John and Annette, John and obviously we're talking a lot about this. John had a very stoic way that he wanted to do things, and Annette had a very patient way of getting to where she wanted to be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I could see them in the scenes doing that. And you guys wrote scenes that allowed that. And as their adopted son, Clark would almost see that. And it was very dynamic the way that they would play each other in the best sense to get the best result.
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys for.
Well, it's also something, and again, this is interesting, back in the day, especially on that network, on the WB, parents were either clueless and not around, like in Buffy, or they were, as John Schneider aptly put it, the parents were the adults and the adults acted like children, like on Dawson's Creek,
right?
Which is, he's not wrong. You know what I mean? And so we wanted to do a show where, Clark liked his parents. You know what I mean? Like most kids want to like their parents and have a great relationship with them. They're not looking to be antagonistic.
Well,
so
yeah,
that was something.
It's a functional relationship rather than just the opposite of the Luthers. It's a functional parent-child relationship. Doesn't mean they don't have conflict, but it actually, the whole point is they love each other. And I think that's aspirational as well for the audience, is that people dream of that. They want that relationship, that connection with parents. So that was part of it. I think that's part of the allure of Superman.
I think it comes through, obviously, because we go to these conventions and stuff, and people come up and they're like, I watch this with my dad, I watch this with my grandfather. It's multi-generational watching, and you guys did it.
But it was also like a big fight. I mean, people literally said you shouldn't do it. They said, no, it's like this is in this outset, this early days before we aired, we had all this like backroom politics with the network, and people saying, the parents should be like much more antagonistic and he should hate the parents. And it's just like much more of the cliche teen drama kind of thing. And we really fought against that.
How many cooks were in the kitchen for every episode? How many times did it have to pass hands or eyeballs before it got greenlit? Like, this is a good episode, we're done. How disappointed were you at times, and how hard did you have to fight for things? There has to be a balance of like, let it go, Miles. We just got to let this go. What was that process like?
We never. I mean, for us, it's always about the best script has to win, always. So we are total fighters. We roll up our sleeves. We never say, like, we keep the script and the show evolves in post as well. We did a lot of reshoots, and that whole process was controversial for directors because we had a guy who was our sort of post head, Ken Horton, who used to change the episodes and the order of scenes, and let's drive everyone crazy. And in terms of scripts, there was a guy at the network who has since died, John Litvak, who was like, you had to get through John basically. And so it was lots of us sitting with John at cafes talking about what he wanted and how we could make the scripts better. And for us, it was always about making the scripts better. And John had a really, really good, he's very, very difficult personality, but he had a really good sense of this show. And was a huge advocate for the show and for us.
It's funny, you say that, Miles, because Michael and I have talked about this already in the couple of podcasts. Is we felt like our job was to make the scripts better as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do. That's the whole point. No, but exactly.
No, it's
some writers are like really, really precious about everything. And we're not those guys. We want it to be the best. And part of the acting process is obviously these are words on a page. They don't necessarily like relate to how you're going to speak them. So it's making it feel it's natural and as real as possible. It's part of the process. So I think that's exactly what we wanted. And I think you see it on screen.
I would call you guys early on and just be like, hey, is this making Lex too evil? And you're like, we know you're going to do something opposite. We know you're going to play it and it's not going to come off that way. You'll make it more likable. You'll make it. There were certain things that you gave trust to certain, and that helped a lot. It was good to know that we were all on the same page and you guys were always looking out. And it probably was a pain in the ass having actors call you and say, oh, what about this? And did you have that with a lot of actors on the show?
Look, better that they call than they just do what they want and don't call, and then you see it in dailies. So
what the hell is this?
Hate that more.
Oh my gosh.
No, I mean, we like that. I mean, it's Is it a pain in the ass? Yeah. But guess what? If the show's going to be better, the scene's going to be better, the actor's going to be happy, and they feel like they can deliver the lines in a way that they believe and more truthful, then we're totally, that's the aim of this whole process, is that everyone contributes and it makes it better. You never settle.
Because it's a team sport. Television is a team sport. Nobody can do it alone.
Right.
So,
well, look, we want you to come back. We hope you'll come back on the podcast, and like, every once in a while, just like, hey, if you watch an old episode, we'll say, hey, you guys want to come on again? It's so much fun. You have so much insight, so many things we don't know or didn't know that were going on. And I think the fans are really going to love having you guys here. Will you come back?
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like we can talk to you guys.
Oh, forever. It'd be a 2-hour episode. But I love this. I want to hear, lastly, first of all, did you think that the show would ever be this big? Were you surprised, and why is it so successful in your thoughts?
I think in our darkest days, in the early, when we were, we knew the pilot was really good, like that we knew, and we thought, look, in the worst case scenario, all Superman shows seem to last 4 seasons. Lois and Clark lasted 4 seasons. The George Reeves show lasted 4 seasons. So we're like, even if we completely tank it, it probably will get 4 seasons. But
yeah, but I'll say to that, Al, that we didn't think we were going to survive 4 seasons.
No, that's what we didn't think would happen. Yeah.
We were always, and we still do, live in fear of being kicked off all our stuff. It's all about Al. We're so paranoid.
I'll tell you one more funny story. And this was, so speaking of just over budget and things, so the show premieres, it's a huge hit out of the gate, like to the point where we didn't understand the numbers and somebody from the WB had to explain it. So everybody kind of backed off and we were able to frankly finish Jitters and do these things because in the words of Peter Roth, nothing's cheaper than a hit. So we go in, and this is about the time we're doing, I think it was episode 13. It was Leech, which was another massive episode. I just cars and roofs. I'm crazy. And we're with Peter, and it was kind of like, it was we have to get the boys, we got to rein it in, right? So Peter sits there with the CFO and he goes, I am not giving you a blank check. This is not a blank check. But spend what you need to spend to make the show great. That is not a blank check. And the CFO's face was just like, holy.
Because this was Peter.
God.
This was Peter's baby, right?
Oh,
this
yeah.
was Peter's baby.
Well, because you have
Peter
to remember
Roth,
too,
yeah.
just for Warner's, this was like the first. I think it was Peter's maybe his second season, but he was brought in to do 2 things, which is build bridges to the WB, who had a terrible relationship with the. They didn't have any shows. Warner's didn't have any shows on the WB. Gilmore was given to them. It was developed by the WB and thrown to them. And the other knock on Warner Brothers, in the kind of mid to late 90s is all their shows looked really cheap and there were a lot of complaints. And so Peter was brought in to kind of mend fences and up the quality control, both of which obviously he did tremendously. So, but it was a big gamble that thankfully paid off for all of us. So
it really has. I mean, it's been 20 years since
almost 21 years.
21 years, and it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Technically legal.
It's almost legal. Lastly, and we'll let you go, and you're going to come back whether you like it or not because we love you. Yeah. And we really, I thank you. Tom and I both thank you for. I mean, the careers we have are because of you guys. You really gave us the opportunity. And
there were ups and downs at the beginning, but what I do know from a core perspective is that you guys, like when I look back on some of the things, it's not that you guys were right, but you guys were like, you had the right, like you guys were making it good.
They cared.
And I've taken that on from you guys. So thank you.
Yeah.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well,
we did care. That's always it. We always cared. Always want to make a great show that everyone could be proud of. And that was always our goal.
And I loved always hearing stories because Miles, out of the 2 of you, between you and Al, you were the one that kind of, you spoke your mind when you were really upset about something. Miles had a little bit of the temper. Am I right?
Miles was known to be a little particular.
Who lost their shit?
Al would just be like,
all I want to say is that fucking Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher had a better life expectancy than production designers the first season of Smallville. Okay, so.
I was a little particular, but it matters. All the details
matters.
Matter.
It does. Everything matters, and
it does. When we're on set and it's 2:00 in the morning and it's this and that, we don't understand. But like the show exists because of that. So thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
We love you. Thank you for being on the podcast, and I'm going to be calling you again to come on soon. So thank you guys, and we love you.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Miles. See you, Al.
See you.
Good to see you guys.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye.
That was really exciting to me.
Great.
Did you enjoy that, Ryan?
Yeah, you guys could have gone. I mean, it was they had all the answers. They had all the answers.
That's why I want to bring them back for another episode, like a big episode. We'll bring them back.
I think you're right.
You could do a special and just
one that Miles directed or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That was so back to the episode of Jitters. Thank you, Al and Miles, for coming on the podcast. It was amazing. I told you it was only going to be 20 minutes. It turned out to be about 25 minutes. but I think that people are going to really love it. So I think the boys
We could have gone on for
coming
hours.
They really did give us a career. I mean, I don't know if I didn't do Lex Luthor, I don't know what would have happened. Who knows what would have happened. So we talked about Jitters, the play-by-plays. I know we don't have to get into it like we sometimes do, but interesting things to know. This is the first episode in the series to have a scene set in Metropolis. The fourth episode to be filmed, Jitters was supposed to air third. However, because of constant changing and retooling to the script, it kept getting put back in the schedule. This explains why the episode had 3 directors. I think Al just said it had 5. Michael W. Watkins, Greg Beeman, and Philip Gracia. Cool quote from Chloe to Clark: just because you spend a lot of time with someone doesn't mean you know their darkest secrets.
Yeah, I marked that one too.
You did? You marked that one?
Oh boy.
I'm gonna make a note of that for favorite scenes.
Well, no, not a favorite scene, just sort of a knowing that's a note for future us.
Yeah, I think that
It
relates to everybody on the show. You know?
Do you know what? I think the best thing about this episode is the chaos that surrounded all of it. Gave us Greg Beeman. And people who have listened to all these podcasts, you'll hear me say his name a lot. Greg Beeman was hired as a director, came in, saw the chaos, and was like, I know how to do this. And like Al said, he made a phone call. By the way, what a hard phone call to make. It's a very courageous phone call. Hey, I see it. I like it. I can make it better. Obviously, Al Miles needed his help, but he went on to be our Superman.
There was something about him, Ryan, this guy, Greg, we talk about, this Greg Beeman fella, that just, he was neurotic and he was crazy in all the great ways, but there was something so comforting about him. And you can confide in him. He was someone you could talk to about the show and
anything.
He made you calm. He put things at ease, and you need somebody like that to run a show.
I had an issue on, I don't remember what episode it was. It might have been one of these where we're out shooting, but I had an issue about some sort of publicity thing that I didn't want to do. And I thought it was an easy no. And then Greg, who was directing, he goes, hey, it was like near lunchtime. He goes, can I talk to you for a second? We walked outside and we were just walking. He kept walking, so I kept walking. And we kept walking. We were talking about life, and he talked about his career and his early success and how he made some mistakes. And he had to sort of reinvent himself and whatnot. And then we got to the point, and he was very upfront about this choice I had just made and why. Obviously, he'd been told to change my mind, but he was very honest about why he personally thought I should change my mind based on his experience. And it talk about when your world goes, my little mind of you can only see what's in this room versus what's actually happening.
Right.
And he helped me with that. And dude, he did throughout I can't speak highly enough about the guy.
Yeah, I do too. There's a lot of highlights in this episode. This is, like I said, this is one of my favorites. This is the pilot, then Jitters. I'd like to know what you guys think. We have some calls we're going to have to do here, but the highlights in the episode, I think we've talked about. Ryan, is there anything we're missing here?
I mean, another great guest. Certainly didn't feel like Freak of the Week. It was very tied to the whole.
It felt real.
It felt real. Yeah, it was good. There was something about the way, I don't know. It felt, the whole thing felt.
I think that there's a very small thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The fact that they tied in that he used to work with Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
Really helped. If you cut that out, now he's a Freak of the Week. You know what I'm saying?
It humanized him.
Yeah.
And it also made you feel like, hey, the Kents knew them. The Kents were friends with them. He's a good person.
And you're thinking about the history before the meteor struck, and that there was a Smallville before then. That I think that changes everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you guys think was it directed? What was it? Was it directed differently? Was it written different? Because the feel,
it felt larger.
Different.
The scope.
It felt larger.
Scope. It felt big. That's why it cost more. And
it felt more intense. It felt like a 90s action movie somehow.
Honestly, I think what you had was chaos and an abundance of film from 4 different directors that an editor or editors had to go through. They had more material as a result of the chaos of shooting. which allowed it to be ramped up and moved around and everything. I think that's my guess.
Yeah. There was chaos surrounded by chaos.
They had too much and they had to fight through it versus having too little and make something out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why it's a little piecemeal but fast, because they're probably trying to protect themselves. Like tick, 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 piecing it.
The hotline is 213-538-2883. We love the questions that come in. Make them brief. And you have a chance to get on. Right now we have a question. Here's the hotline. We're opening it up. And this is Ray. Ray, what do you got?
Hello, this is Ray Harada in Japan. And I have a question for Alan Miles. What sort of traits were you considering when developing Lex? Well, I love Lex. He comes off as slightly creepy sometimes. Like in the beginning of Jitters, I thought there was no good way for Lex to know about Clark's party without being creepy or stalkery, like spying on high schoolers. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. First of all, we didn't have that question for Alan Miles. We talk about that. We talked about, in fact, with Alan Miles, we were talking about how it was like, what is he showing up to a high school party? You know, he does these things. I don't want to make it sound like Lex is some old creepy guy, but yeah, showing up to a high school party and, you know, the torch, and, he's just a weird guy.
Like Lex is a really important guy and he's really busy. If he's not showing up to a high school party, what is he doing? And then we never get to see Lex sort of on his own unless it's in a business circumstance. Like, did he cancel on Mark Zuckerberg to come to the Kent party?
Probably not.
I wonder.
I don't think he did. Okay, it's Tim. We're going to go to Tim off the hotline. The Smallville.
How do you get these on your
hotline.
phone? This is great.
I know. Here we go.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Michael. This is Tim from Utah. One of the early season 1 episodes that didn't feel like a freak of the week. And my question for you guys, how did you guys do that stunt where Michael is pulling Earl and then Tom is pulling Michael? How did you guys do that? Like, was there stunt people involved or what? Keep up the great work. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Good question. I remember being on Wires. I remember there were stunt guys for both of us. And I'm sure you had your stunt guy involved. And, it just, trick photography, man. Just the way it's movie magic. It's, Tom, how would you explain that?
The funny thing about wire work is what you're doing in the moment is not what the camera needs to see. So there's a lot of, and that's where your stunt guys who have more experience can help you understand how to move and how to make things work for the camera. Because, I mean, it's a very famous quote that Alfred Hitchcock said to an actor: "You can do whatever you want, but if the camera doesn't see it, it didn't happen." And that's a big part of wire work. And there's a limited time. You can only be up in a wire for less than 30 seconds, maybe a minute, because of the you can't just stay up there all day and mess around.
Right.
So I don't actually remember doing it. Like, I see it in the episode, but I don't recall doing it. But I recall from my wire work experience that it probably wasn't that easy, and we had a lot of help.
I also apologize to guys out there, ladies, gentlemen. You had questions. Some people had questions for Alan Miles, but I was so excited I didn't even look at the questions, and I just talked to them. We talked to them for 25 minutes. So there were some questions that were just geared towards Alan Miles and their experience, but they'll be back on the show, and hopefully we'll get to those questions then. The Rosenbaum rating: 3 roses is the best. 2 roses, 1 rose. The heater is right down the middle. Then we got 1, 2, or 3 bombs. Rosenbaum rating. We'll start out with Ryan.
I feel like I got to give it a 2.
2 roses for Ryan.
Why were you hesitant though? Like, I saw you get ready. I knew you were going to say it.
I mean,
not a confident 2. It's like a hesitant 2.
I was. It's my first time. It's my first time with a 2.
Yeah, you got to be hesitant. You're like, hey, if I'm going to throw a 2 around, it's got to be worth a 2.
Yeah. But no, I really felt different watching this one. It's probably it's got a lot to do with everything. Probably just like the story, the acting, and the setting, and just like the ties to like past Smallville, and it just felt like a different kind of show.
It felt
somehow.
bigger. It felt bigger,
but it still felt like the same show.
Yeah. Tom,
it took 5 months to shoot it.
Yeah, and I think
it was bigger,
and it shows.
I give it a -1.
You're a liar.
You knew I was just trying to get Rosenbaum's reaction. I give it a 2.5. I think it's one of our greatest.
2.5. That is an incredible score.
It's great. It's great. It's
2.5 roses from Welling, 2 roses from Ryan Thames. I'm going to go.
What's the deal?
This is a tough one.
Don't worry about what we said.
I'm going to give it 1.75 roses.
Can you do that?
I can do whatever the fuck I want. You know what? I mean, it's like the pilot's a 3. This is almost a 2. This is pretty damn solid. You know what? I'm gonna go with 2. I'm gonna go 2. I'm gonna stick with Ryan on this one. I'm gonna stick with Ryan. Excellent episode. Very, very exciting. This is time now for the death and save count. Guess how many people died?
Oh. Oh.
Wait for it.
1.
1 is the correct
1.
answer. 1 person died. The worker that was killed inadvertently by Earl. He didn't mean to kill him, but
what if that was Chloe's dad? That would have been tragic.
That would have been tragic. It was still tragic. It was some stoner. How many people were saved in the episode?
You gonna count all
the answer's 2. Earl and Lex were saved by Clark.
We're not counting the class of hostages.
I guess they were all saved, but no, they were just, I guess you can't. Okay, it's now time for Ryan's favorite scene. He's going to write down 3 scenes. He's got them written down. We're going to guess which one was his favorite. And here we go.
All right, we got Earl stumbling into LexCorp and killing the janitor. We have Lex saying that he's going in. Or we have the final scene, the showdown on the bridge. It's number 3.
I know what I'm going to say.
All right, go.
Showdown on the bridge.
I was waiting to see if I get a reaction. I think you liked the Earl scene, your first one. That's my pick.
I did like the showdown on the bridge.
Yeah! Nailed it!
But the Earl scene.
It set a tone. Like it was there aren't a lot of episodes that start with deaths. There's just a lot of so far it's just been here's an eccentric character and here's how their powers manifest. This one was like some serious shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, guys, we love this episode. We thank Alan Miles, the creators of Smallville, for joining us. It was a lot of fun. I love episodes like this. It gets all the characters going, the scope of it. This is one of the reasons why I think Smallville was a real success. It's episodes like this that you remember. And like Al said, it's hard to make 22 quality episodes a year. So you are going to have freaks of the weeks. you are going to have Supernatural had them. Every show has that. The X-Files has them. This is how you survive. I mean, it's not like HBO Max where they go, oh, we're only doing 8 episodes a year and they can make every episode just perfect and highfalutin or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's it, guys. Hey, thank you to all the patrons. We really love you. Go to patreon.com/talkville to become a patron today and support the podcast. We really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe and tell everybody you know to listen or watch the podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Got another great episode next week. Thanks for joining us, guys. Ryan, did you enjoy it today?
I did.
Yeah. It was a good time.
It was a good time.
Tom?
This was a fun one. This is the 3 Rosies for me. Having Al Miles on, this was great.
Yeah, this was fun. I think maybe we should just think about trying to have more guest stars.
I agree.
I agree. Why not? It's fun. So far, at this point we've had 2.
Well, Al Miles.
That's I guess 2 right there.
Yeah.
And then
Kristen,
if they keep that in there, which I think
listen. Obviously, it's a scheduling thing too, guys. It's not easy to get people on and time it out. But the more people we have on, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So
Yep, I agree. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you join us next week. Make sure you get ahead and watch the next episode and watch it, and let's all talk about it. And we'll be here. All our love. Smallville forever. All right, these are the patrons. These are the patrons. Think we forgot you? We never forget you. Our patrons are so important to us, and thank you for supporting the podcast. Go to patreon.com/talkville. And here's Tom Welling. We're going to read out the top tiers. These are the shout outs for the folks who are really helping the show, and we appreciate you. We certainly do. Nikki G, Leanne P, Raj C, Santiago M, Suzanne B,
Leah S, Little Lisa, Callie D, Tom T, Mark A, Sophie M,
Betsy D, Liliana A, Abby P, Chris F, Kimberly E, Jeremy V,
Michael H, Ray H, Karen M, Design OTG, Danielle B,
99 more, Lalani N, I think we got it right, Catherine P, Brett G, Super Sam, always hold on to Smallville. Maybe that should be our ending line. Always hold on to Smallville. That should be our ending line for each episode. Thank you, always hold on to Smallville, for giving this the idea. Continue, Tom.
Farrell T, Jeff E, Esteban G, DJ Kento, Garrett W,
Just JTR, Tyler H, Kimberly L, Danny G,
Teresa, Justin S, Eric W, Tom N, Tony V, Rodolfo V,
Jason W, Osama A, Nancy D, hi Nancy, Megan H, Artoon K, Justin T, and Lucio,
Tristan C, Grape Jelly 817. Thank you for joining. Jeremy G, Anna M, Amanda R,
Brandy S, Teddy 127, Michael P, Benjamin P, Ryan R, and Grumpy Itis. I know. I almost got it.
You again. Danielle P. Daniel B, Jordan M, Hillary B, TH3, Blur, Craig G, Christy R, Pollyanna, Karen P, Derek G, Richard S, Heather G,
Nico P. Tom wanted to just keep saying them. So, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We love you guys. Thank you for always being there. Thank you for supporting the podcast. We're still getting it off the ground. Spread the word. You know the handles. Write a review. Keep listening. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.